I've learned a little about myself and my brain with this project, or this isn't even my project, this was somebody else's project. Um, this is a second set of IF cans, and they're 175 kilocycle IFs, and they're messengers or whatever they are. I actually tracked them down, what they are, who made them. One of them was still available a few months ago. Out of the bottom, wires come out of the bottom. It doesn't have terminals on the bottom. They're very easy to locate. Now, this crystal is 1,090 kilohertz, or kilocycles, all right? Now, if you subtract the IF of the radio, which is 915 kilocycles from this crystal, you'll get 175. And the output, you come in here with an IF can, an IF signal, and out comes audio. This is a detector tube, okay? So, and then you go right to the volume control. So the radio becomes, the BC348 becomes a dual conversion. Now, for BFO, you're using the first stage, the first IF BFO in order to use CW. Okay, it'll work, but and it will become even more narrow. Using low frequency IF cans like 175 kilohertz instead of 455s makes the signal even more narrow. It's the theory of the Q fiber. Okay, now you might have saw one of my early videos where I took a module, I unplugged the tube, I got a base of a tube, and I made a wired up a header, and you take the tube out, you plug this unit that I made in the socket of the tube, you run the wire over to another command radio, and now you got a triple conversion radio, okay? And nothing gets touched. Now what this guy did, which pissed me off, was, okay, I don't care that he stole the dynamotor and stole the base of it. That doesn't bother me. I expect the radio not to come with the dynamotor, not to come with the saloon bay. What pissed me off was, for some reason, he took the fourth IF can out and then put the signal from the third IF into this board. So now I have a radio that's missing an IF can, which is going to make it really annoying. That's what's got me all frazzled. The other thing too is I found in different groups, somebody mentioned there was an article to produce something like this, and no one seems to be able to find other. You got the guys, why do you care about doing that on a radio? That's an old radio. And you got those guys that chime in. You got the other guy go, oh, my wife bought the CD of complete QST magazines. I'll look it up for you and get back to you, which he never does. You get the same, what would we call these? Parrots. They show up in these conferences, and you got the parrot that doesn't want you to work on anything that's old. You got the guy that's got to mention how expensive a radio he has. You got the guy that's going to promise to help you, and he never comes back. I go. It's so funny. Whenever I start researching stuff, I get more and more into it, and that's the sickness I have because I like to learn. Now, I always called this stuff mildew, this white powdery stuff. It's actually called white rust, okay? And it's this piece of metal has been galvanized. And when galvanized metal rusts, it produces white powder. Coincidentally, the radio has a musty, mildewy smell, okay? You can see these cans. I don't know if it shows up on the camera. These bad babies have really changed their shading. These are galvanized. I don't know if they're aluminum. Let's get a magnet. Let's get a magnet. Okay. I guess stuff to the magnet, so it takes a little longer to get the magnet. Okay. So these are most likely aluminum. Okay. So they have a maybe some type of plating they put on them. but they're a victim of some type of white rust also. And the next thing I'll look up on what to wipe them down with so it doesn't reoccur. Okay, there's so much in it, but finding that crystal. Remember I said originally if I had the crystal, it would make figuring what this out a lot easier. And it had been bouncing around. The radio fell on the floor. I thought it was a screwdriver that dropped. It was this crystal, and that's 1090 kilohertz, and that lets you do the math real quick, and you can find out, well, the IF cam of the final IF of the BC348 is 915 kilohertz. So you subtract that from this crystal, which is 1060, and you get 175, which are these IFs. So right off the bat, except for this tube, now I know it's a detector tube, it says 101 on it, handwritten in a China marker. And China marker is used in tube companies. Okay, this tube's from a batch of tubes that's going to be tested. So whoever made this might have worked it. It's an RCA radio, but doesn't mean it's an RCA guy. It could be a Sylvania guy. It could be a tongue saw guy. Let me think of some of the other tube companies. Raytheon. Okay, I don't know how old this is, but the workmanship, it just for a thing back in those days, this really flows. Now this guy, this is a capacitor block, and there's several capacitors in here, and his soldering's not that good, but I was hoping to find this layout, not necessarily built on a dynamotor chassis, but maybe just on a small area, and that's all he had to do was condense it down, lay out the parts, do the wiring, and I could find it, and then my brain would stop thinking about this. See, my brain latches on to something like a pit bull on a poodle, as the guy said from Seinfeld, Bookman, when he's trying to get the book back from Seinfeld, Isle Desire. I can't think of the name of the book right now, but anyway, I just get into this thing where I just like to look through the internet, and I keep finding this stuff, you know, about the white rust and you know, things to remove mildew, smell, and I learn a lot with each project. And you know, at the same time, I was building that other what we call dual conversion type radio using modern parts, and this baby shows up, and it's the same idea. In other words, you take the IF strip of the radio and you convert it again, and that makes your selectivity of the radio increase. Okay, now BC348 is considered not a sensitive radio. There are other mods to help increase the sensitivity, but when you increase the sensitivity, then your selectivity goes down a little bit. Okay, so whoever this was, man, this guy's pretty good. And I found people that wrote into the different magazines and said, you know, I managed to build what is it called, a dual conversion add-on to the radio, and he mentions maybe some of the tubes, and that's it. And they printed this in the magazine, and you got guys referencing, oh, that magazine's got the answer, and you go there, and all it is a quick paragraph. See, the person ran a scan on not YouTube, Google, and then they find hits like June 1963 and that, and I found all those things. And then, like I said, the one guy, my wife put me the CD of all the magazines. I'll go through and get back to you. And he never does. Okay? But it's always funny when I go in these searches and I end up in conferences and you got those people there. It's like the same guy. He's like a generic, why are you wasting your time? My wife bought me the CD. I get a chance. I'll go through and get back to you. Okay? And then there's a guy going, I really think I saw this circuitry, and there's supposed to be outboard ones, outboard dual conversion. I haven't found any of those, okay? And I've been really digging, but I have to do these searches, and at some point my brain says, okay, we've done all we could. Now I have several PDFs I still have to go through that I found, and I'm still digging, because I find it interesting that somebody would say, you know, this radio is really good, but I can make it great. Now, one guy mentioned he put a dual conversion unit inside the radio up on the back, or up, up on a bracket, so it wouldn't mess with the power supply. See, this guy put this thing in the power supply section, so that means he's ran the wires out the back connector. So that's even more botched up. He's changed the filaments of the tubes to 6 volts, right? Which this has 6-volt tubes. So he's rewired the filaments. So that alone is a full day's work, on and off, finding the wire, verifying it, removing it, putting it in the right place, desoldering the connections. So, got that I have to do, and then you have to go and find the IF can. And of course, this is bugging me right now. It's really no big deal because the weather we have is just crap, okay? My buddy came up from Florida to do the York train show. He got pretty good weather. He got real cold mornings and then a couple hot days, but he didn't get any rain. And last year when he come over, he comes twice a year, it rained on us the day he come over. Well, it didn't rain this time. We had a good time. We went over to Five Guys Burger, got a burger, shot over to the train museum, and he goes through the train, takes me through the train museum, and he shows me all the different trains that he owns. He's heavy into trains, okay? I'm not heavy into radios. I'm heavy into the circuitry and how they're made and how they evolved. And then all of a sudden they just started getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. I just spotted a national radio. I think it's all Bakelite. Someone had one, and it got even cheaper. There's no more transformer in it, and it's a piece of crap. Okay, it's equal to the Hellcrafters. Now I got to forget the number of the thing. 130, 140. No, that's even better. There's one. Anyway, there's this one radio guy gave me. I helped him clean a house out, and he gave me this thing as payment. And I really didn't want it. He kept pushing me, so I took it home. I had to repair it and stuff. When I moved here, I threw it frick in the garbage. Because whenever he came to my house, he always checked to see if I still had the radio. First thing I did when I got here was throw that sucker in the garbage. But there's some radios that are basically AA5 radios, tabletops, and then they added a coil in there, and the calibration on the bands is crap. See, that's in my mind, backlash gears. Anti-backlash gears and real great dial calibration. So when you turn that thing, you right on that frequency, and then you got to touch it up a little bit, but if it's a shortwave station, you can actually tune the radio to the frequency. You turn the radio on, it come right on, it'll be right on the nut. Okay, it's amazing when you get past the crap that I had as a kid. My Kit 135 from Lafayette. It's a regenerative radio. And they didn't tell you how to calibrate it. You put it together, you do some tests, but there was no pages on like how to go and calibrate it. So it was never really calibrated. And the other thing too is they would say 7 megacycles in the 40 meter band. That totally blew my mind. Was it 3.75 megacycles in the 80 meter band? And I'm like, what's this 80 meters? What's this 40 meters? I had no magazines that really explain that. They're mostly TV repair and radio repair. I had no access to ham radio stuff when I was growing up. I had friends one or two friends that had licenses, but they were clueless. They always had an older guy come over to their house and bail them out, put their aerials up for them. I put some aerials up for them too, because they didn't know how to solder. They didn't understand what an insulator was. I went through all this stuff. That's why I really like it. But I sometimes get in too deep, and it annoys me. But if you like radios like I do, it's a passion. And just look at these resistors. These are carbon, and this thing's got to be before 1960. All right, I'm still digging for this thing, because this is what I'm into right now, is making some type of plug-in for a radio to make a dual conversion. I think that's it. All right, that's it.